The warrior princess was now nothing more than a rabid dog, scorned by all. The mastermind behind this smear campaign was none other than the current king, her father. He had orchestrated a plot against her mother, the queen, simply because her popularity with the people overshadowed his own. The queen and the first prince were killed in his trap. But the fifth princess, Kurna, managed to escape with her brother's help. Still, her father, the king, refused to let her be. When Cherna turned 15, he sent her to the battlefield. He wanted her to die in the north, but he miscalculated once again. Not only did Cherna survive, but she also returned with glorious military achievements, earning the title of the empire's God of War. The king was furious. He resorted to his old tricks, secretly spreading false rumors that Kurna was a bloodthirsty warmonger. He claimed she only defended the border for years to satisfy her own lust for killing, and that she deliberately provoked the wars. In no time, the revered warrior princess was branded a mad dog that everyone feared. But even that wasn't enough for him. To ensure his other daughter would secure the throne, the king arranged an ambush on Cerna's battlefield. His plan succeeded. Cherna was wounded, and the only mage in her unit was killed. With no one to heal her, she could only grit her teeth and endure the pain. When she learned that her dear father was behind it yet again, she decided she was done being patient. She ordered her troops to end the war quickly. They would return to the imperial capital in 5 days. Her subordinate questioned the order, believing the king would never approve. Enduring the searing pain, Cerna instructed him to send another letter to the capital. In 5 days, she would return to marry her fiancé, Dean. She promised that after the wedding, she would remain in the north to guard the border forever. She knew it was a bait her greedy father couldn't possibly refuse. 5 days later, Cerna returned to the capital with the empire's strongest order of knights. The citizens, terrified of her, scrambled to hide as she rode through the streets. Cherna paid them no mind, galloping straight to the palace and kicking open the massive doors, where her celebration banquet awaited. Hearing that she was back to marry Dean, the nobles smirked at each other, joking that her fiancé was risking his life for marriage. The next second, they were screaming in terror. Cherna cracked her whip, lashing them several times. She hated it when people gossiped about her right in front of her. Sensing her anger, Dean quickly approached to calm her down, gallantly kissing her fingers. "Please don't be angry, Your Highness. I would be heartbroken if you harmed your health." Though he was her fiancé in name, this was the first time Cerna had actually met him. Considering he was a famous noble in the capital with countless admirers, she was relatively satisfied with her father's choice. Seeing their intimate interaction, the surrounding crowd began to murmur about what a good match they were. Just then, someone asked Princess Lyra for her opinion. Lyra, who had been scowling, instantly changed her expression. She elegantly gathered her skirts and stepped forward. "They are a match made in heaven, of course. Congratulations on your triumphant return, Imperial sister." Cherna watched her warily. The timid girl she remembered from years ago was gone, replaced by someone who had clearly lived well. Still, Lyra had an air of being easily manipulated, which explained why the noble families saw her as the ideal heir to the throne. After a few pleasantries, Lyra excused herself, claiming she felt unwell. At that moment, Cherna's adopted brother, Limey, stepped forward. Seeing her adorable brother, Kurna lovingly stroked his hair. "Why aren't you with your friends? I want to be with you, sister." "So well behaved, you're just as cute as I remember. I raised you well." Dean, feeling like a third wheel, said he had to meet someone and excused himself. As he walked away, Lamey stared blankly at his back. "This is my celebration banquet," Cerna teased. "Did my sweet little brother get me a gift?" "Come with me, sister," Lamey said mysteriously, pulling her toward the garden. They had only taken a few steps when Cherna froze, stunned by the scene before her. In the garden, her sister was in a passionate embrace with her fiancé, whispering words of love to each other. Cherna's face burned with anger. To think they had been putting on an act for her just moments ago, how difficult it must have been for them. Limey watched her expression anxiously. "Sister, are you okay?" Of course she wasn't, but she forced herself to act as if nothing was wrong. When she returned to the banquet, the cheerful mood was gone. Heartbroken, she drank heavily until she was completely wasted. Lamey carefully carried her back to her chambers. "Why would he do this to me?" she mumbled. "We were engaged when we were 8. After all these years, I thought of him as family." "It's okay. Everything will be okay from now on. Sister, you still have me. You can look at me. I will never betray you," Lamey said, gently kissing her forehead. The next second, a wave of dizziness washed over Cerna. A satisfied smile crept across Lamey's lips. His sister was getting married, and her obsessive younger brother was panicking. That night, he climbed into her bed and took things to the point of no return. When Cerna opened her eyes, she saw a man lying next to her. Just then, he stirred and mumbled sleepily, "Sister, are you awake?" Cerna shot upright. Seeing herself and Lamy both unclothed, flashes of the previous night flooded her mind. She had slept with the little brother she had raised herself. This was divine punishment. 11 years ago, her older brother had brought home a little boy named Lamy. Since they were close in age, Serna took on the responsibility of caring for him. Lamy was an adorable child, and Kerna liked him from the start. But back then, the young Lamy was wary of everyone except her brother, and would run away whenever he saw her. This only made Serna more determined to get close to him. She followed him around every day, until he slowly stopped resisting and eventually became completely attached to her. But their happy days were short-lived. After the queen and her brother were murdered, Kerna was devastated. Lamy stayed by her side, and she gradually found the strength to protect herself and her younger brother. They spent several peaceful years together, until the king threatened Lamy's safety to force Kerna onto the battlefield. They had been separated ever since, and yesterday was the first time they had seen each other again. Kerna never imagined that upon her return, she would turn her brother into her husband. She was filled with shame. Seeing her guilt, Lamy lowered his head pitifully. "Sister, don't blame yourself. It was all my fault. I was delusional." "How could it be your fault?" "The truth is, sister, I was the one who seduced you last night." "What? My little brother seduced me?" Kerna was stunned. Just then, Lamy's tears began to fall freely. "Sister hit me. I was despicable." "I love you so much, yet I did something you would hate. You have every right to despise me." Watching him cry, Serna found him devastatingly beautiful and, to her own horror, wanted him to keep crying. She pushed the twisted thought aside and comforted him earnestly. "Stop crying. You're breaking my heart. Lamy is my favorite person in the world. How could I ever hate you? If you stop crying, I won't be mad anymore." Lamy took her hand and rubbed it against his cheek. "You forgive me? But last night you promised you'd let me be your man. Do you still mean it?" Kerna hesitated, but hearing him call her sister over and over made her heart melt. What was done was done. She would take responsibility. "I guess what people said back then was true, that I was just raising you to be my childhood husband," she teased, blushing. But Lamy was overjoyed. He threw his arms around her and whispered happily in her ear, "From now on, I'm your childhood husband." Knock, knock, knock. A maid's voice came from outside. "Your Highness, Viscount Dean is here. Have him wait in the reception hall." The persistent Dean had come to see her. Lamy's expression immediately soured, and he called out to Kerna nervously. Sensing his unease, she kissed his cheek reassuringly. "Don't worry, I'm fine. You get some more sleep, I'll go get rid of him." As soon as Kerna left, Lamy touched the spot she had kissed, a lovesick look on his face. Kerna hadn't expected Dean to be so shameless. One night he was whispering sweet nothings to her sister, and the next day he was at the palace trying to charm her. In his eyes, the princess was beautiful and powerful, an excellent woman, but from a man's perspective, a woman who was too strong wasn't a good thing. If Princess Kerna weren't so formidable, he thought, he would have treated her well. Dean pushed a cake across the table. He'd heard that desserts from the Sinlac pastry shop were a favorite among the capital's noble ladies, and had bought it specially for her. Kerna sat elegantly, sipping her tea. She was tempted to smash the shameless cheater's head in, but for the sake of her public image, she forced herself to remain calm. She placed her teacup down with grace and told him coldly, "Let's cancel the wedding." Dean was completely caught off guard. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked nervously. Kerna was done pretending. She exposed him on the spot. "The garden last night, I saw everything." But Dean denied it, forcing himself to stay calm. "I don't know what your Highness is talking about. I love you too. Even if we get married, I'll still love you." Kerna repeated their conversation from the night before, word for word. Dean finally realized his secret was out. He immediately dropped to his knees, begging her to forgive him for the sake of their years together. Kerna laughed mockingly. "That's right, all these years. If you had just told me you fell in love with Lyra, I would have smiled and wished you well. But you two had to sneak around behind my back, treating me like a fool." She picked up a cup of coffee and dumped it over his head. "Don't bother me again. It's pathetic," she said, turning and walking away without a backward glance. She had no deep feelings for Dean. His only value had been to help her return to the capital. Now that her goal was achieved, he was useless. However, to avoid giving her father an excuse to cause trouble, she needed to find a replacement fiancé right away. She decided to host a banquet to choose a husband, which would also be a perfect opportunity to meet the sons of ministers and win over their families. Having made up her mind, Kerna ordered the annulment papers to be drawn up and news to be spread that she was seeking a new husband. Just as her attendant left, Serna opened her door and ran right into her brother. "Sister," he called out, his voice filled with despair. Hearing that Serna was not only ending her engagement but also looking for a new husband, Lamy couldn't sit still. He rushed forward and grabbed her hand, his voice trembling as he asked if she was abandoning him. Cherna pulled him into her arms. Of course not, sister will never, ever abandon you. Unsatisfied with her answer, Lamy pretended to be hurt and lowered his head. It's all my fault my birth is so humble. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to look for a new husband. Hearing this, Cherna gently lifted his chin. Look at me. What I'm doing now is just a strategic move. Choosing a husband is just a pretext to get closer to the nobility and win their support. In my heart, my little brother is the most important thing. Nothing can ever compare to you. Sister, I was so scared you were going to leave me, Lamy whimpered. Cherna's heart ached for him. She hugged him tightly and whispered, I won't. Meanwhile, having secured his sister's affection, Lamy couldn't help but smile to himself. The king was enraged when he heard the news and demanded to know why she had done it. Her father, fearing her power, had tried to have her killed time and again. Even her supposed marriage was just another one of his schemes. To prevent her from gaining the support of the nobility, her father had secretly allowed her sister to seduce her fiancé, promising Lyra the throne if she could win over Dean and his family's influence. But Cherna was done playing games. She revealed her sister's affair with Dean and declared that she could not tolerate betrayal. I don't use things other people have touched. If a man is tainted, you just throw him away. Her reasoning was sound and the king couldn't argue. But the thought of her choosing a new husband, which would take time and effort, gave him an idea. He used it as an excuse to demand that Cherna hand over command of her night order. He was acting like a common thief, but he tried to make it sound perfectly reasonable. The ugly sight of him made Cherna want to punch him. However, the authority over the knights was useless to him. They were loyal only to her. If her father wanted to foot the bill for the army, Cherna was happy to let him. She handed over the command. Even so, the king was still uneasy. He asked a confidant how old the boy Cherna had raised was. He was just 18, the right age for marriage. A man with no power or influence was hardly the best choice for any girl. With this thought, another plan began to form in the king's mind. Back at her residence, Lamy greeted Cherna warmly. Sister, the king summoned you. Was it something important? Not really. He just found an excuse to take away my command of the knights. But don't worry, the Ares knights are loyal only to me. If he wants to pay their expenses for a while, it'll save me a lot of money. I believe whatever you say, sister. By the way, Princess Lyra is here to see you. She arrived shortly after you left for the palace and is waiting in the reception hall. One after another, they came to see her, as if they had planned it. Cherna was getting annoyed, but she was curious to see what kind of act Lyra would put on this time. She walked into the reception hall and asked impatiently what Lyra wanted. To Cherna's surprise, Lyra claimed she had come to apologize. She went on to say that she and Dean never meant to hurt her. She said that all men make mistakes, and her fiancé had simply made the same mistake all men make. It was the same old story, and Cherna was tired of hearing it. But then Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She claimed that after Cherna broke off the engagement, Dean realized he'd made a mistake. The person he truly loved was Cherna. Everyone makes mistakes. I hope you can give Dean another chance, Imperial Sister. So, after seducing her sister's fiancé, she felt no guilt and was now calling Cherna petty. Cherna thought her royal sister must be seriously disturbed. Lamy wanted to teach her a lesson, but Cherna quickly pulled him back. She smiled confidently, her presence radiating power. Let's not even discuss whether he truly loves me or not. But even if he did, so what? I don't keep things that are tainted. Am I supposed to save them for a special occasion? And weren't you two so in love that you betrayed me? Why are you trying to give him back to me now? Her pointed questions left Lyra speechless. Flustered, Lyra tried to explain, but Cherna cut her off, saying she'd had enough. If Lyra couldn't bear to see Dean so heartbroken, she should go comfort him herself. Maybe then he'd realize how good she was to him. Lyra put on an innocent face and stammered, trying to say more. Lamy, unable to watch any longer, gently reminded her not to say anything else hurtful. After all, one was her sister and the other her ex-fiancé. The situation was upsetting enough. Cherna, wanting to end the conversation, told her to leave, making it clear she didn't want to discuss the matter further. Defeated, Lyra finally left. She was furious that Cherna didn't seem upset at all about losing her fiancé. She thought to herself that she should have been more patient. Dean's heart was already hers. The next day, Cherna was up and dressed at dawn. The rustling sound woke Lamy. He lazily wrapped his arms around her waist and murmured, "Sister," asking why she was up so early. Cherna kissed his forehead. "I'm used to waking up early from my time in the army. If you're tired, sleep in. I'll come get you after my morning training." She started to leave, but Lamy pulled her back. He wanted to go with her. He selfishly wanted his sister to get used to his presence so he could slowly fill her heart until there was room for no one else. In the dining room, Cherna studied the profiles of potential husbands, remarking that the minister's sons were quite handsome. Lamy froze, carefully watching her every move. Cherna soon selected a few portraits. Her butler was surprised by her choices. 2 were from powerful families, which made sense for forming alliances, but he couldn't understand why Cherna chose Aldo Rodamido, Dean's younger brother. Cherna smiled sweetly. My ex-fiancé ran off with my sister. It's only fair his brother compensates me, don't you think? It was an absurd reason. But when it came to marriage, her father was truly scheming. He was putting on a grand show of hosting a matchmaking banquet for her, inviting all the eligible young nobles. But with her reputation, every noble son in the capital would avoid her like the plague. It wasn't a matchmaking banquet, it was a public humiliation. Cherna sat on the sofa and glanced at Lamy. What should I do, Lamy? It looks like nobody wants your sister. That's not true. They just know they're not good enough for you. His sweet words made Cherna's heart flutter. Come here, sit next to me, she said, motioning him over. Lamy happily moved closer and suddenly popped something into her mouth, startling her. His sister was with him, yet she still had to choose another fiancé. She had to maintain the image of a woman obsessed with handsome men for her father, all to gain the support of the nobility. Their intimate behavior shocked the butler, Ian. Your Highness, you two are… It's exactly as it looks. We're together. Do you have a problem with that? No, of course not. I'll take my leave. Fine. And on your way out, organize the files on my desk. Hearing the word files, Lamy glanced at the desk. His eyes landed on a portrait of an incredibly handsome beast man, and his brow furrowed. Father, I don't want to go to the princess's residence, a young man said, refusing to attend the matchmaking banquet. But his father insisted. He had already missed the celebration banquet, and skipping this one would surely leave a bad impression on the princess. Under pressure, the young man finally agreed. He was Fakesy, son of Marcus Padrick, a cat beastman, and one of the fiancés Cherna had selected. The matchmaking banquet was held in the Grand Palace, attended by all the noble families of the capital. But no one was happy to be there. The rumor that the warrior princess is completely unhinged had spread, and everyone feared her. Now that she was choosing a husband, they were terrified of being picked, believing it would be a death sentence. They grumbled and gossiped behind her back, but the moment Cherna appeared, they all fell silent, nervously keeping their distance. Cherna looked at them with amusement. Everyone, please don't be so tense. Make yourselves at home. Surely I can't be that scary, can I? Just then, a reckless noble stepped forward and accused Cherna of being too willful for daring to break an engagement arranged by the king himself. Another man glanced at Lamy and fabricated a story, claiming Cherna had abandoned Dean for him. Cherna was unfazed. She decided to play their game. They were the ones who had forced the title warrior princess on her, and now they expected her to be conventional. She refused to give them what they wanted. She squeezed her brother's hand tightly, a glint in her eye. I don't know if I'm being willful, but you two seem to be meddling a little too much. Who I marry and who I'm with is my private business. She then gave them an elegant curtsy. My lords, you should enjoy the banquet. Her words were laced with threat, and the two men didn't dare say another word, watching in stunned silence as Cherna led Lamy away. As the banquet reached its peak, Cherna stood on the second-floor balcony and spotted Lyra. But Lyra was acting strangely, constantly glancing away while talking to others. Cherna followed her gaze and discovered Lyra's secret. Her sister's true love was someone else entirely, the son of Marcus Padrick, the Beast Man. Now things were getting interesting. Cherna went downstairs and found Fakesy in the crowd. Fakesy, being polite, gave her a gentlemanly bow. From a distance, Lyra saw this and her face darkened. This only made Cherna more delighted. She brazenly invited the young Marquise to dance. Fakesy accepted, and they swirled across the dance floor together. Lyra's face was pale with rage, and not far away, Lamy's expression was just as grim. A friend whispered to Lyra, who quickly made an excuse that she felt unwell. She tried to reassure herself the handsome Marquis Padrick could never fall for a lunatic. Meanwhile, the man in question was flustered by Cherna's teasing. She tilted his chin up, her voice like a siren's. This face is just stunning. The more I look at it, the more I like it. Fakesy couldn't take it and shyly looked away. But before he could recover, Cherna's next words froze him. I would be very pleased to have you as my fiancé, she said confidently. I hope you'll consider letting me be the woman who gets to see your tail. On this continent, many beastmen existed. However, a beastman's tail, when in human form, could only be seen by their chosen mate. Cherna's words were a bold and direct proposition, but that was exactly the effect she wanted. She needed her father to believe she was infatuated with Fakesy's beauty, lowering his guard against her. Cherna walked past Dean, who brightened, thinking he still had a chance. He greeted her warmly, but she ignored him as if he were thin air. He was furious and turned his anger on Fakesy. After all, Fakesy had outshone him for years, and now he was trying to steal his woman. The resentment was palpable. Cherna slowly approached Lamy. Lamy, have I kept you waiting? Not at all. I'd wait for you forever, sister. His words made Cherna smile. She gently caressed his face. He was such a sweet boy. It pained her to think of the hardships he must have endured in the cutthroat capital. Lamy nuzzled her hand. It doesn't matter, as long as you remember me. My only fear is that you'll abandon me. Nothing else matters. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed it devoutly. Cherna was surprised by his fervent display. Lamy, realizing he might have scared her, quickly apologized. But Cherna suddenly leaned in and kissed him. A brother this adorable deserved a reward. The other guests at the banquet watched in disbelief. Just moments ago, Cherna had been relentlessly pursuing Marquis Padrick, and now she was being shamelessly affectionate with the brother she had raised. Scandalous! Absolutely scandalous! They whispered among themselves. Cherna didn't care. She shot them a sharp glare, and they immediately fell silent. She told Lamy not to mind them, calling them a bunch of gossiping fools. I know, they're just jealous that you're so good to me. Laughing together, Cherna boldly pulled Lamy onto the dance floor. Just then, another handsome man entered the banquet hall. Look, it's the young Lord Ivanovich, someone exclaimed in disbelief. Slow was the grandson of Duke Ivanovich. Slow watched the affectionate siblings with envy. If Lamy could win Cerna's heart, maybe he could too. He gathered his courage and approached her. Slow, it's been a long time. Greetings, Your Highness. My grandfather was unwell a few days ago, so I was caring for him at home. I regret that I was unable to attend the celebration banquet. I hope you'll forgive me. Cherna looked at Slow, feeling a bit emotional. He was, after all, a childhood friend. In contrast, Lamy's expression was grave, and he tightened his grip on Cerna's hand. Cherna, not noticing his jealousy, smiled sweetly at Slow. No need for formalities, Slow. Is the Duke feeling better? I'll find some time to visit him. Slow's gaze fell on their joined hands, a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. He quickly recovered. You're too kind, Your Highness. Grandfather is fine now. But I did hear that you broke off your engagement with Rodamito. The nobles are all talking about you choosing a new husband. I was wondering if I might have a chance to be a candidate. Cherna didn't take him seriously, assuming he was just trying to save her from the embarrassment of having no suitors. Slow, don't tease me, she chided. But he insisted, saying he wanted to reserve a spot. Fine, Cherna laughed, covering her mouth. As long as you're not afraid of my reputation ruining yours, you can cry about it later. The two chatted happily, oblivious to Lamy, whose face grew darker by the second. A murderous glint appeared in his eyes. Slow was startled for a moment, but when he looked at Lamy's innocent expression, he thought he must have imagined it. What's wrong? Cherna asked, looking between them. Slow, convinced he had been mistaken, just shook his head and said it was nothing. But Lamy, though he appeared calm, was seething inside. His hands, hidden behind his back, twitched with the urge to act. Fortunately, Cherna didn't talk with Slow for long and prepared to leave with Lamy. But just then, another nuisance appeared. Dean rushed forward and blocked their path. Cherna's patience was wearing thin. He ignored her expression and said, Your Highness, forgive my rudeness, but I have something important to discuss with you. Can we speak in private? The man was relentless. Cherna was annoyed and told him to say what he had to say right there. But Dean persisted, his expression urgent. Your Highness, what I have to say concerns the throne. Are you sure you want to discuss it here? Cherna was speechless. She turned to Lamy and told him to go home first. Lamy, ever the understanding brother, sweetly said he would do whatever his sister wanted. A few moments later, they were in a private courtyard. Cherna, tired of wasting time with the cheater, said impatiently, All right, what did you want to talk about? And no nonsense. I hope you'll reconsider our marriage. I assume you don't want the Rodamito family's support to go to Lyra, do you? And I don't believe for a second that you have no interest in the throne. Oh? What do you mean by that? Are you offering me your support? But I thought you loved Lyra so much you were willing to sacrifice yourself and marry me to help her? No, that was all a lie to trick her. In my heart, Your Highness has always been the most important. Please, just forgive me this once. Cherna was utterly baffled. She couldn't understand how his mind worked. Why would anyone want something they'd already thrown away? The problem is I'm not interested in you anymore, she said, mocking him openly. Compared to the other handsome men, you're really quite plain. But I can offer you more than just a handsome face. I can help you. I'm different from them. Dean pleaded desperately. Cherna was done with the conversation. She turned to leave. I just want a handsome man. I don't need your help. If I have to, I'll just take what I want by force. Watching her walk away, Dean yelled, It's not like that, you know what I'm talking about. Cherna scoffed. I'm not interested. You should go talk to Lyra. I'm sure she'd be happy to listen. Your Highness, if you don't choose me, you'll regret it. The nerve of him trying to threaten her. Cherna sneered. He clearly didn't know his own limitations. If he angered her, she wouldn't hesitate to have the Rodamito family find a new heir. Returning home, Cherna felt exhausted. She walked straight to her room, but the scene inside made her stop in her tracks. Her usually dutiful younger brother was sitting there, blindfolded, his robe half open, waiting for his master's attention. Cherna mentally screamed, "Who on earth corrupted my sweet, innocent little brother?" But she couldn't deny that the sight of him made her swallow hard. She slowly walked to the bed and teased, "My little brother has learned some bad habits." Startled, Lamy moved to pull off the blindfold, afraid his sister would hate him. But Cherna suddenly pushed him down onto the bed. "I like it a lot." It was a night of passion. Cherna woke first. Seeing the night sky outside, she thought about how wild the previous night had been. Looking at Lamy beside her, she felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't given him enough security, which had made him jealous and feel the need to please her like this. From now on, she decided she would cherish him even more. Early the next morning, a document arrived from her father. He wanted her to immediately sign the papers transferring command of the Ares Knights. It was a shameless move, but since she had agreed, she had no reason not to sign. No matter what, the Knights would only ever recognize her as their true commander. Before sending the document back, she had her confidant inform the Knights that they didn't need to be so restrained for a while. They could do as they pleased, and she would take responsibility for any trouble they caused. Her confidant was shocked by her recklessness and urged her to be more cautious now that she was back in the capital. Cherna, impatient with his nagging, brushed him off, saying she would tone it down. But the thought of her father taking her command still stung, and she decided to send him a gift in return. Her confidant sighed. "Your Highness, please stick to the plan and don't create unnecessary trouble. I'm just going to poke at the people and things he doesn't care about. It won't affect the big picture. We've just returned to the capital and don't have enough intelligence. We're not sure what the current political situation is. Right, Lamy?" "Yes, sister is right," Lamy said, walking over to her. "But if you need intelligence, sister, I have a recommendation." Cherna looked at him with new eyes. In the years she had been away, the young boy had grown and learned much. She felt a sense of pride. Meanwhile, her attendant looked on in despair. One of them was the killer, the other handed her the knife. They were a handful. "By the way," Cerna said, "have someone send an invitation to Duke Ivanovich's estate. I'm going to visit him today." "You're going to the Duke's estate, sister, yes, and you're coming with me," she said, taking Lamy's hand to reassure him. "If it wasn't for Duke Ivanovich back then, we probably wouldn't have survived to grow up." Hearing this, Lamy relaxed. Cherna stood up to leave, but a sharp pain shot through her body. The mark of Lamy's love from the previous night. He apologized profusely if he had accidentally hurt her, and if she ignored him because of it, he would blame himself. This behavior made Cherna's heart ache for him. She forbade him from being so subservient, telling him she never blamed him and that everything that happened between them was consensual. But the marks on her body were quite noticeable. If anyone saw them, they would surely start rumors about her being obsessed with men. Not wanting to give anyone ammunition, Cherna told Lamy to be more careful in the future. When they arrived at the Ivanovich estate, the Duke came out to greet them personally. Flo smiled brightly as he saw the carriage approach. The door opened and Lamy carefully helped Cherna out. "Duke Ivanovich, good afternoon," Cherna said, affectionately taking his arm. They chatted like family, reminiscing about the past. But halfway through their conversation, the Duke suddenly asked Flo and Lamy to step outside. He wanted to speak with Cherna alone. Once they were gone, the Duke's expression turned serious. "Your Highness, your real reason for coming back isn't just to get married, is it?" "You're right, Duke, it's not. But Your Highness, have you really decided to fight for that position?" "I have to. That throne belonged to my brother in the first place. I'm just taking back what's ours." "He owes us this. One day I will make him kneel before my mother and brother's graves and repent." "You've done well, child. I'm sure your mother and brother would be very proud." After their talk, Cerna left without lingering. Watching her go, the Duke marveled at how much she had grown. Then he turned to Flo and warned him to stay away from the princess from now on. Flo didn't understand why. The Duke snapped, "The path Her Highness is walking is difficult and dangerous. I don't want you getting involved." "If her path is so difficult, why shouldn't we help her instead of abandoning her?" Flo retorted. His words enraged his grandfather. "You? How can you help by dying for her? In any case, you are not to get involved in her affairs, and you are not to have any more contact with her." Flo had waited years for Cherna. She had finally broken her engagement, giving him a chance. He couldn't bear the thought of giving up now. The peace and happiness of the citizens were what gave Cherna strength on the battlefield. Her greatest wish was for the people of her land to live in peace. Listening to her, Lamy rested his head on her shoulder and suggested she visit the place he had mentioned before, where she could find all the intelligence she needed. Ever since returning to the capital, Cherna had been under constant surveillance from the palace, which made things difficult. But Lamy already had a plan. He knew of a secret contact point for the intelligence agency, a newly opened dessert shop. Lamy led Cherna to the shop. Walking inside, Cherna wryly noted that this was the new Sinlac Patisserie, the same place Dean had gotten sweets from to try and win her over. The shop looked ordinary, and Cherna was confused. Lamy led her to a waitress. "Hello, I'd like to order 11 macarons and 2 servings of sabayon." The waitress smiled. "Of course. Will you be waiting here, or shall we deliver them to your residence?" "We'll wait here." "I'll arrange that right away. Please, have a seat on the second floor while you wait." Upstairs, the waitress led them into a room. Cherna looked around the bare space. "This is the safe house?" Lamy just smiled. Suddenly, a magic circle glowed on the floor, a teleportation circle. Interesting, Cherna thought. A small intelligence agency that employs such a high-level mage must be quite formidable. I can't let them fall into anyone else's hands. I have to win them over. In a flash of light, they were transported to a lavish room where a man was already waiting at a dining table. Cherna sat down across from him. "Are you the head of this agency?" The man squinted his eyes and smiled. "Of course not. Our boss is a very busy man. So you can't make any decisions?" Cherna had come to make a deal, and it wouldn't work if she wasn't speaking to the person in charge. But as soon as she said that, the man shot up from his seat and bowed deeply. "I can make some decisions. From this day forward, our agency will provide any and all services to your highness." Gaining their complete loyalty so easily, Cherna felt like she was walking into a trap. The man took out a token. "And I mean all services. Whether it's intelligence or assassination, we can do it." Cherna accepted the token, satisfied. Even if it was a trap, she wasn't afraid. She was determined to control this agency. "As long as your highness is pleased. When you wish to contact us, simply say the name Luo 3 times to this token." "Luo?" "Yes, that's our boss's name. Is there anything else I can do for you, your highness?" Cherna's curiosity about the agency's power grew. "Can you arrange a meeting with your boss for me?" But the man said the chief was unavailable. Cherna leaned back, a determined look on her face. "Is that so? Well, I have nothing else planned for today. I can wait." The man looked flustered. He hadn't anticipated this and didn't know what to do. Just then, Lamy spoke up and complained that he wanted to go on a date. Thinking it might be best not to push them too hard, Cherna agreed to Lamy's suggestion. But before she left, she told the man, "Let me know when your chief has some free time." The two went to a bustling market, but before they had gone far, a little girl ran straight into Cherna. Cherna worriedly checked to see if the girl was hurt, but the child stumbled back and fell to the ground, wailing, "She's scary! She's going to eat me!" Just then, a woman appeared out of nowhere, fell to her knees, and begged Cherna to spare her child. Cherna hadn't said a word, but the woman was sobbing as if she had been terribly wronged, crying, "Princess Cherna, please spare us!" A crowd gathered, and hearing the name Princess Cherna, they immediately assumed she was at fault. "How unlucky for that mother and child to run into her," they whispered. Lamy stepped in front of his sister protectively. Cherna placed a hand on his arm and addressed the woman on the ground. "Instead of just begging, you should check if your child is hurt. If she is, go to the 5th princess's residence and see the steward for compensation." Something was clearly wrong with the mother and child. Cherna hadn't been in the capital for years, yet they recognized her instantly and immediately started begging for mercy. It was an obvious attempt to publicly reinforce her reputation as a bloodthirsty monster. Fortunately, Cherna wasn't a fool. She chose to de-escalate the situation instead of getting angry. But Lamy was furious that his sister's name was being dragged through the mud. Cherna calmly explained to him that her reputation was already ruined. If she had lost her temper and arrested them, she would have fallen right into her enemy's trap. Besides, the mother and child had been trembling, so they were genuinely afraid of her. Her reputation wouldn't change overnight. No sooner had she finished her thought than a bucket of water was thrown by someone nearby. She quickly pulled Lamy out of the way. Before she could react, the person who threw the water was on their knees, begging for mercy. It was the same act all over again. Cherna scanned the crowd, looking for the person behind it all, but found no one. She was furious at the blatant provocation. She ordered her guards to seize the man. "I suspect he was trying to assassinate me. Bring in everyone he's been in contact with for the past few days for questioning." She then signaled for a guard to carry out another task, while she took the man away for interrogation. But despite threats and bribes, the man refused to talk. Cherna was patient. She made him kneel until he was ready to confess. Sometime later, a guard rushed in. "Your Highness, we've caught the mastermind." Their outing was plagued by one setup after another. Her good mood was ruined. It wasn't a total loss, though. She had seen the beastman, Marquis Padrick. He was not only handsome, but also possessed a kindness rare among nobles. Cherna wanted to win him over to her side. Back at her palace, the troublesome king was up to his old tricks. He had sent several new maids who were obviously his spies. Cherna willfully refused them, ordering them to be sent back. The maids, who had been so confident moments before, were now trembling with fear. Cherna dropped the pretense. "Which families are you from?" she asked. They were too scared to speak. "None of you want to talk?" Cherna's voice grew colder. I am Sana of the Haber family," one of them stammered. Cherna hated indecisiveness and didn't believe for a second that her father would send useless spies. She decided to test them. "Send the other two back." The remaining two immediately fell to their knees and stated their family names. Haber, Tellez, and Kraft, all families she had clashed with in the past. "Send them all back, I don't need any maids," Cherna repeated. But being sent back after being presented by their families meant they would be cast out. They begged her to let them stay. Cherna was pleased. She told them her residence was too poor to afford so many maids, wanting to see how far they would go. As she expected, they were willing to work for nothing but food and shelter. The result made Cherna happy. She had just saved herself another expense. The steward led the new maids to their quarters through a dark, eerie hallway. He stopped at a door. "I've already shown you Her Highness's study. It contains many military secrets and is strictly off limits. If anything happens in there, not just you, but your entire families will be destroyed. One last warning, do not wander around at night," the steward said, his face illuminated by the flickering candlelight. The steward left the maids to whisper among themselves about his ominous warning. One girl, still terrified, clung to another, only to be shaken off. She turned to a third maid who readily agreed to stay close, but secretly thought the girl's naivety would be easy to exploit later. Cherna was busy with work when she received an invitation to a family dinner from the king. Her personal guard reminded her it was almost time. Cherna had no interest in such events, but since it was a family dinner, she had to make an appearance. Knowing the princess's blunt nature, the young guard was worried and followed her, constantly reminding her to watch what she said. Cherna couldn't make any promises. The thought of his superior's wrath if he failed to look after the princess gave the guard a headache. He nagged her the entire way until Cherna finally gave in and told him to stop following her. When she arrived at the dressing room, Lamy was already there waiting. He had prepared her clothes and accessories and insisted on helping her change. He was pleased with the conservative dress he had chosen, which covered her from head to toe. He wanted to be a part of everything in his sister's life. If he could, he would hide her face from the world. Seeing her obedient brother, Cherna couldn't resist rewarding him. She told him to lower his head, and before the confused Limy could react, she gave him a sudden kiss. He was thrilled. He personally saw her to her carriage and stood watching until it disappeared from sight. Returning to the palace, he entered a hidden room, and a magic circle lit up, teleporting him to the intelligence agency. He picked up a mirror and asked his subordinate, "How do I look?" Handsome, of course. He was still bothered by his sister praising Fakesy Padrick's looks earlier. "Who's more handsome, me or Marquis Padrick?" Everyone on the continent knew Padrick was the most handsome man, but the subordinate, under Lamy's intense gaze, nervously told the truth. Lamy shot him a look, then admired himself in the mirror. He boasted that he was the most important person to his sister, and that Fakesy was just a pawn she was using. He was magnanimous enough not to bother with him. Remembering his task, he ordered his men to prepare the files his sister needed. If she brought him along next time, he would give them to her then. If she came alone, he would deliver them himself. After giving his orders, he went back to looking in the mirror. It was Cherna's first family dinner since her return. Watching her siblings openly mock Lyra, Cherna realized that despite her improved circumstances over the past 5 years, Lyra's position within the family hadn't changed. Even with the king's backing, she had no voice at the table. None of this concerned Cherna. Her only enemy was her father. The king finally made his entrance after everyone was seated. He told them to relax, claiming it was just a simple family meal, but everyone sat in tense silence. The king gave a fake laugh. "It's so rare to see you all together. You almost look like a normal, loving family." He glanced at one of his sons, who quickly agreed with him. Cherna sneered at the hypocrisy and focused on her food. But the king wasn't finished. He called out to Cherna, asking how her search for a new fiancé was going. Cherna knew he already had someone in mind for her and was just feigning interest. She played along, saying she would settle it soon. Just then, the king sighed dramatically. "This is all my fault. I didn't manage Lyra properly, and she stole Dean from you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be without a fiancé." The table was stunned. Another sister, Elisa, was the first to speak, calling Lyra a shameless child of a lowly maid. Cherna was unimpressed. She knew this wasn't all Lyra's fault. She would never have dared without the king's permission. "Lyra, you were in the wrong. Apologize to your sister," the king commanded. Lyra was used to being humiliated, but being forced to apologize in front of the very people who bullied her was a new low. She didn't understand why her father was doing this. But in the end, she had no choice but to bow her head and apologize. The dinner ended with Kurna's forgiveness. The king had orchestrated the entire event to play the part of a loving father, while secretly pitting his children against each other. Just as he planned, Elisa, now aware of Lyra's scandal, began targeting her under the guise of defending Cerna's honor, tarnishing Cerna's name in the process. Cerna was disgusted by these petty games. She stepped in front of Lyra. "That's enough! Do what you want to her, but don't use me as an excuse. I don't want my reputation damaged because of this." Exposed, Elisa angrily shoved Cerna aside and stormed off, threatening Lyra that she wasn't finished with her yet. Although Cerna had helped Lyra, it wasn't out of pity. She was simply tired of her father's manipulations. She warned Lyra, "In the royal family, kinship is a joke. The only person you can trust is yourself." "I understand, Imperial Sister," Lyra replied, but she knew her own reality. Powerless, she had to grasp at whatever scraps of favor her father threw her way, even if it meant being used. She was willing to do anything for power and status. But Cerna knew the throne was always intended for someone else. "Do as you will," she said, waving a dismissive hand. After everyone else had left, the king secretly summoned Lyra. Cerna returned to the capital on the eve of her wedding, infuriated the king. He tried to create trouble for her time and again, but she easily thwarted his plans. Fearing she would incite a rebellion if she stayed any longer, the king needed her married and sent back to the border immediately. He had already chosen her husband, Lamy, the boy who was always at her side. In his eyes, Lamy was weak and powerless, a perfect match who could offer Cerna no political advantage. To set his plan in motion, he called for Lyra. He admitted to putting her in a difficult position at dinner, but claimed he had no choice. Cerna, with her powerful knights, had no respect for him, so he had to make a show of it. "But you have always been the child I favor most," he said, trying to appease her. Though she knew he was treating her like a fool, the powerless Lyra could only obey. The king was pleased with her compliance and got to the point. With Imperial Sister Cerna's terrible reputation, the noble sons are all avoiding her. If she can't find a husband, she'll have to stay in the capital. It's my fault I didn't raise her better. Now the only one who dares to be near her is Lamy. I just want Cerna to find someone she loves and get married soon." The king's meaning was clear. He wanted Lyra to push Cerna and Lamy together. Lyra understood immediately. "I know what to do." After she left, the king ordered his men to secretly assist Lyra, leaving nothing to chance. The easiest way for the king to secure his throne would have been to eliminate Cerna, but he hadn't. She was too valuable a warrior. As long as she was alive, the empire was safe. Besides, once she was back on the border, she would never be able to rebel. She was just like her mother, the late queen, too kind to ever do anything that would harm her people. That was why Cerna could not be allowed to stay in the capital. Cerna was resting in her carriage when she felt a sudden, intense killing intent. A thrill ran through her. She leaped from the carriage and in a few swift moves took down the lead assassin. "Tell me who sent you." Instead of answering, the assassins launched another ferocious attack. Cerna's expression was calm. She undid the bracelet on her left wrist. "Fine, don't talk. You're all going to die here today anyway." She eagerly brandished her whip. She hadn't had a good fight since returning to the capital. Tonight, she would teach these assassins a lesson. But they were too weak. The fight was over before she could even enjoy it. One of the assassins, realizing Cerna was a beast tamer of royal blood, panicked and tried to flee to warn his master. But he didn't get far before Cerna caught him. Her personal guards surrounded the remaining assassins. Cerna had intended to interrogate them, but the last one used his final ounce of strength to lunge at her. She had no choice but to kill him. Hearing that Cerna had been ambushed, Lamy ran to her room. The moment he saw she was unharmed, tears welled up in his eyes. Cerna found his tearful expression endearing and lovingly caressed his cheek. Lamy leaned into her warm touch and said stubbornly, "I won't let you go out alone again. From now on, I'm staying by your side. If there's danger, I can protect you." Cerna didn't like that. Lamy was the only family she had left. She was strong enough to protect herself and didn't need him to put himself in harm's way. If he got hurt, she would never forgive herself. She told him firmly that she didn't need his protection and promised she would be careful. But Lamy was serious. He was strong enough to protect her. Now that her enemies were making moves right under their noses, he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Lamy led her further into the room, wanting to help her change into a beautiful dress. But as he unzipped her gown, his expression changed. The marks he had left on her back were fading. He didn't like that. He wanted to add more. He put on his pitiful act again. "Sister, I left so many marks on you. I didn't mean to. I just love you so much I couldn't help myself." How could Cerna be angry at such a heart-wrenching display? She cupped his face in her hands and gently kissed him. Her hands began to wander over his chest. "If it bothers you, Then I'll just have to leave some marks on you too. Then we'll be even, she said before nibbling at his throat. Limey was ecstatic. The person he loved wanted him too. When Sherna opened her eyes again, Lamey was sleeping peacefully beside her. His worry for her earlier had left her feeling unsettled. She needed to eliminate the threat immediately. The captured assassins were being whipped with a special lash designed for beastmen, and they were already half dead. But even this wasn't enough to make them talk. Sherna impatiently signaled for the guards to stop. She decided to bring out the special needles. One of these driven through the skull would feel 10 times more painful than a regular nail, like a snake eating its way through their brain. As the needle neared the beastman's head, he finally broke, screaming that he would tell her everything. Back in the room, the sleeping Lamey had woken the moment Kurna left. The fact that the assassination attempt was troubling his sister so much put him in a foul mood. He used a magic circle to summon his subordinates and ordered them to investigate the matter thoroughly. Then he estimated the time and sat on the bed, waiting. The moment Sherna walked back into the room, his tears started to fall. I had a nightmare that you were hurt, sister, and when I woke up, you were gone. Seeing her brother so distraught over her, Sherna's heart filled with a possessive warmth. She held him close and whispered, "It's okay, don't be afraid, I'm fine." "Where did you go, sister? Did something else happen?" "Don't worry, I just went to the dungeons to question the 2 men we captured." Sherna led him back to the bed. She lay on top of him, wiped away his last tear, and gave him a tender kiss. "Go to sleep now." But a small kiss wasn't enough for Lamey. He grabbed her hand and invited her to join him. Even then, he didn't want to sleep. He put on his frightened act again. "Sister, I'm still scared. I can't sleep." "If you're not going to sleep, what do you want to do?" Kurna asked, seeing right through him. Lamey dropped the pretense. He rolled over, pinning her beneath him. "You know what I want, sister. I need you. Only when I'm one with you can I feel at ease." Soon they were lost in another night of passion. The next day they sat in the garden drinking tea together. Sherna savored the peaceful afternoon, a rare luxury she never had at the border. One of her new maids, Amy, was brought before her. Sherna had noticed there was something different about her from their first meeting. Now she was giving her a choice. "Tell me," Sherna said threateningly, "what do you think would happen if I killed the other 2 maids and let it be known that I have a secret alliance with the Teles family? What do you think His Majesty would do if he heard that? It would sow suspicion between the king and the Teles family, and Amy's family would be doomed." Amy knew that her only chance of survival was to pledge loyalty to the princess. She immediately knelt and begged for her life. Sherna was satisfied with her reaction. "Get up," she said, ending her cruel joke. "No one else will know about what happened today." With that matter settled, Sherna turned her attention to something else. The box her maid had delivered to the Heber family should have arrived by now. She was eager to see what the Count's choice would be. Meanwhile, the Count's expression was grim as he stared at the box. When he heard it was from Princess Sirna's residence, he collapsed into his chair in a panic.